It's been a very long time since it was just me, microphone, camera, talking basketball. It's been a very long time. But game 4 of Philly, Boston has me motivated to talk basketball with y'all. And it's mainly me ranting about the Celtics. That's what it's going to be. And we won't have another episode of my podcast, 3 Point Weekly, coming out for like another week because we just recorded before game 4 today. So I feel like I have to get this off my chest because we won't talk about it on the pod. It won't be timely anymore. So I'm going to bring it back to the channel. I know the content has been different lately, but enjoy me ranting about this series for maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. And that was a very long-winded intro, but we got to talk about this game. We got to talk about this series because I'm very upset. I am very upset, man. A lot has to do with Joe Mazzulla. That's the first guy that we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about James Harden. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a big James Harden fan. I love James Harden. We're going to talk about him because 2 of these games he's been incredible. 2 games he's been awful. So we will talk about James Harden, more so the incredibleness of their 2 wins, which he's been the best player on the floor. But we got to start with Joe Mazzulla because this is a series that could already be over. And shoulda, coulda, wouldas are like, yeah, that's very hypothetical. But Boston has had every opportunity for this series to be over in 4. Like, I not only firmly believe that, it's very obvious. Game 1, Harden had a masterpiece game, but Boston offensively was still super sound, had a chance to tie or take the lead in the final 10 seconds. In that game, Jason Tatum had 40 points. Jaylen Brown had a very efficient, I think like 10 of 12 game. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout, which, as we'll see, is kind of a rarity for him in late game situations. Called a timeout, and his decision was, let's give the ball to Marcus Smart. Now, Marcus Smart had a very good fourth quarter. I think he scored like 9 points in the fourth quarter. Had kind of a favorable matchup with whether it was Maxey guarding them or Harden. He was going at guys. He was, and he was getting to the bucket. Decided to drop the play for Marcus Smart, and it was clearly for Marcus Smart. I don't care what anybody else says. That play was obviously for Marcus Smart. And as good as Smart played, he ended up turning the ball over. And I just can't see why like the ball's not in Jason Tatum's hands or Jaylen Brown's hands with the games that those 2 guys both had. And you decide to go to Marcus Smart down the stretch, which, okay, whatever. And there was no real like defensive adjustments made against James Harden. Now, maybe you didn't want to show your hand too early in the series. That could be why. But a guy's just dragging, scoring 45 points, getting whatever he wants, getting the Al Horford matchup, getting the smaller defenders on him. He was getting whatever he wants. There was no real adjustments made. So, that was the first minor thing. Well, more so major, I guess, glaring concern in this series for me. But it was just game 1, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe, adjustments will be made. And adjustments were made. Game 2, adjustments were made. Boston blew them out. Game 3, same adjustments, really worked well, especially like the Embiid matchup was a very big one. And you end up getting up 2-1 in game 4. So this is what everybody's here for. In game 4, the Celtics really had no business being in this game with a chance to win this game because the first 33 minutes or so of basketball, they were playing just one of the worst games that I've seen them play all postseason and one of the worst games I've seen them play in quite some time, where basically like the offense was not fluid. The ball was not moving as much. Defensive rotations were being missed. There was no sense of urgency to make Harden uncomfortable, to make Embiid uncomfortable. And those guys were getting whatever they want. Guys were getting open shots. PJ Tucker, Tyrese Maxey, Georges Niang. These guys were getting open shots and hitting open shots. And there was no real adjustments. Tatum played like his worst half of playoff basketball that I've seen him play personally. Like, I think he didn't score a bucket until like the final possession or 2 in that first half. So it's like, it was a very poor half from him. And just offensively speaking for the Celtics. And just for the Celtics in general, like I said, there was really no fluidity to their offense. So it was just very poor in that first half. And really for the first 33 minutes of basketball until like the switch flipped and Boston made a run, had a 5-point lead with like a minute or so to go. And down the stretch, decisions were made again. They kept switching the Embiid Horford or the Embiid Harden pick and roll. And Al Horford kept getting switched on to Harden, or it was Malcolm Brogdon getting switched on to Harden. And Harden was taking advantage of those matchups like so much. And I know Boston has really made their living this season defensively on being able to switch 1 through 5. But the way Harden was playing, he was more aggressive today than he was in games 2 and 3, especially game 3. He was hunting for those matchups and he was getting whatever he wanted. And that ended up, tying the game at the end of regulation. And then I didn't have an issue with Mazzulla not calling the timeout on the last play of regulation. I did not have an issue with that. And anybody who's been around the channel for a long time or watches 3 Point Weekly knows I don't have an issue with coaches letting their guys play most of the time. I did have a problem when Coach Bud did it in Game 5 because your season's on the line. I had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with this one, though, because game was tied. You put the ball in your best player's hands. You got into your action early. You got a great shot. And Smart just missed it. And Smart had a great offensive day. So I'm not mad at that look. I'm not mad at the decision by Tatum. And I'm not mad at the decision by Mazzulla to let the guys play. You go to overtime. You kind of still have momentum because you storm back from 16 down. Like, that's fine. Boston was lucky to not be down 25 in this game, to be honest. And they were able to get to overtime and had a 2-point lead. It was like 115, 113. And this is where just catastrophic mistakes were made. Decisions were made. I'm pretty sure there was a timeout before this Philly possession. 26 seconds left, 13 on the shot clock. Remember it vividly. I don't know whose call it was to double off of Harden in the weak side when Embiid is on the right block. I don't know whose decision. I don't know if it was said in a timeout. I don't know why the hell Jason Tatum, even though he had an amazing defensive game, I think he blocked 5 or 6 shots. He had 4 blocks today. Had a great defensive game. I don't know why or how he got switched on the Embiid when that hadn't been a matchup pretty much the entire game. Out of all the switches that Boston has done, I don't remember one time outside of this possession that Embiid was being guarded by Jason Tatum off of the switch. I don't know where the hell that came from. And I don't know if this was Brown's decision, if he was holding the timeout to double team Embiid on the block if you're in the strong side guard and Harden or the weak side guard and Harden. I don't know whose decision that was, but it made it for a very difficult closeout for Jaylen Brown to make, as athletic as he is, to get to that corner. In the game that James Harden had, he had 39 points at this time. 39 points at this time. You can't double team off of him. A 2 doesn't beat you, but a 3 does, and a 3 ended up giving Philly the lead, which was just such a poor decision. One, how did Tatum get matched up there? And why did the double team come off of James Harden on the easiest pass to make? That is the easiest pass on the floor that could have been made right there. The cross-court passes that Embiid was making were tough ones. They were getting deflected really all game long. So I don't know why the decision was, let's double team off of the weak side corner where James Harden is standing. That was just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it was Brown. I don't know if it was Mazzulla. I don't know if it was somebody else. That was a poor decision. But this is the issue that I do have. Letting them play this next possession. Because, 1, you're down 1 this time, so it's a different situation. 2, you have 2 timeouts. And what really threw me off was there was really no sense of urgency to get into the set. And I think as a head coach there, that's when you kind of got to step in and be like, all right, timeout. We have 7 seconds left because you guys wasted 10 of them trying to get up the floor. We need to get into our action quick. And there was no sense of urgency. Mazzulla let them play 2 timeouts. You're down 1. This is the difference between a 3-1 series going home to close it and a 3-1 series going home to, try and set yourselves up for a Game 6 win on the road. But instead, Mazzulla did not call timeout. Boston got into their set incredibly late. Tatum did not start going towards the basket until there's about 4 or 5 seconds left on the game clock. Probably closer to 4 because he made a pass out and Smart didn't get the shot off. He hit it, but he didn't get the shot off. So it's the decisions there is just big time. That's the difference between being up 3-0 or 3-1 and going back to Boston with a chance to close it. But instead, you're going there to try and win a Game 5 in a critical Game 5 with the series tied at 2 apiece. Not a good showing for your first really big playoff series as a head coach. Now, like I said earlier, he has made some really good adjustments, but these are the moments that really just stick out, and they're the very important ones. And I trust that Joe can make these adjustments down the stretch more, but this kind of has been a common theme for Boston all year. They've struggled closing games out, even though their clutch record might be better than what I'm kind of insinuating. A lot of their losses this season have been in close games, and I'm just a little concerned. Little concerned. I guess the bright side, like, it's taken two 2018 playoff Harden or just 2018 Rockets Harden performances in this series to get 2 wins for Philly. 2 close wins that went down to basically the last shot, and James Harden won these games. And that's where we talk about James Harden, man. I got questions for sure about Mazzulla. Tatum started off very poor. He played 47 minutes, was on the floor basically majority. He sat out like a little bit to start the fourth quarter, and that's really it. Like, he was on the floor a lot. Sat out a little bit in the first half too. Game did go to overtime. Played 47 minutes. Almost grabbed 20 boards, was blocking shots. As poor as his first half was, he was still one of the more impactful players on the floor. A couple more things, couple more notes. As good as Malcolm Brogdon was offensively, as good as he was down the stretch last game, they were looking for that matchup a lot down the stretch, and that's something to really watch going forward in this series. How often Brogdon will be on the floor in fourth quarters. Will it be a lot of offensive and defensive kind of substitutions with him and Derek White? Something to watch there. Not as much Grant Williams in this game when he was very good defensively in game 3, but that's mainly because Al Horford was so good today against Embiid, especially in that fourth quarter in overtime. He was so good. I think he blocked like 5 or 6 shots. Like, he was incredible. Those are just my few notes of concern. That's it. Let's talk about Philly though, because we were on the podcast earlier, and we were basically all talking like this series was over. And that's mainly because of what we've seen from James Harden in games 2 and mainly game 3. Now, game 2, he was coming off of that monster performance, 45 points in game 1, where he was doing everything for Philly, basically offensively, creating a lot. So, like, you can expect a downer. Embiid's coming back. He just won MVP. Maybe you defer a little bit more to him. But game 3 was the concern when this man was passing up floaters, was passing up layups, wasn't looking to be aggressive, was just kind of out there. And it was concerning to me. It seemed like his confidence was completely shook in that game. And we've seen Harden have like moments where he's very passive before, but I think this was even a little bit like extreme. Like, I've never seen this man basically act like how Ben Simmons has done in the past, where he's not shooting when he's at the rim. And it was very concerning to watch. And even when he was shooting at the rim, he's getting the shot basically blocked, it seemed like, every time. Because there was just really no like sense of urgency, no confidence there. But game 4 looked like a completely they must have let him go back to Vegas or something, because this was a completely different James Harden. He was aggressive from the jump, getting to the basket, finishing, shooting the floaters again, shooting the step back threes, playmaking, made some really good defensive plays too in this game. He put together another masterpiece game. This is a game where Joel Embiid was so good too. Both of those guys scoring over 30 points. Embiid had 34. Even though like the field goal percentage won't look great, he was really like a force in this game for most of it. Down the stretch seemed like he was a little tired. Al Horford was kind of, having his number down the stretch, but that's where James Harden came into effect. Hit the floater to send it to OT, hit the 3 to win it. But that doesn't even like go to describe like how big he was for them in this game, especially when like Maxey and Tobias have all been struggling. This was really the Embiid and Harden game. Probably the best game that I've seen them play in the postseason. Not probably. This is the best game that we've seen them play together in the postseason, and maybe like in their time together in Philadelphia. Like, it could be that. Now, I haven't watched every single game, but this is definitely up there for sure at the very least. And it was just a very good game. They needed this from Harden. I made a tweet earlier. I basically said, this team is only as good as James Harden is. And if James Harden is playing even like 75% of what we got in games 1 and game 4, they have a chance to win this series. They do, because that gives you one of the like probably 2 of the 3 best players in the series. And the way Tatum has been playing, maybe the best 2 players in the series, to be honest. Like, it's definitely it's possible. Like, you got to throw that out there, and that gives them a very good chance to win. And game 5 is going to be very, very interesting. But like I said, like, anybody who knows me knows I'm a big James Harden fan. So it's good to see him like even though he's looked like a bottom 10 player in the league in games 2 and 3, in games 1 and 4 he's looked like a top 10 player in the league again. Like, that's how good he's looked in those 2 games. And I personally didn't think that we were going to see another game like game 1, but this one was just as good. Just as good, man. And maybe just as, like, important. Only shot 4 free throws, too. So that's just, like, so anti-James Harden. I think one turnover. Yeah. For most of the game, he had 0 turnovers, which is anti-James Harden. Dude's usually a turnover machine. Dude usually doesn't get credit for his defense. Made defensive plays, wasn't turning the ball over, hitting clutch shots. Like, he's trying to erase some playoff narratives, even though a couple of these games in this postseason he hasn't been amazing. But this series, he's had 2 critical games when Philly needed it most.
Embiid also played 46 minutes too.
Everybody's going to be tired. No matter how many days are off in between these games, everybody will be tired when it comes to Game 5. I'm excited as a basketball fan, as a Celtics fan. I'm super nervous. But this is playoff basketball, and I'm glad this series is not like a wash. I'm glad we're actually getting a competitive series, because I think many people probably thought like Boston had this in control just because of, you know, these teams' history in the playoffs, especially against each other. So Game 5 will be a very critical one. I forget the number, but it's always like around, I think 75% of teams that win Game 5 in a 2-2 series go on to win the series. So that could be the series right there. Should be a fun one. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing these kinds of videos again. I really don't know. I've been having discussions with my podcast partners and everything, and I was basically telling them I don't know what I want to do with my content. Like, the quizzes are cool. The views are not, but the quizzes are fun. Ranking stuff is fun. But so is this. Like, I was watching some old videos, and I'm like, I kind of miss just sitting down and talking. Like, just talking the game on my own terms. So this is, maybe this will come back. Maybe not. I don't know. But if you did enjoy, leave a like or don't. I don't know. If you made it to this point, you must have enjoyed something, so you might as well drop a like. But I'll catch y'all next time. I'm out.